Cities shine with lights, but shadows crawl beneath them. Streets remember what people forget, and buildings hide tragedies behind their walls. In East Asia, crowds, fire, and chaos have left wounds that never healed. These stories are not whispers of folklore. They are true, heavy echoes of urban nightmares. Tokyo's Shinjuku, alive with neon and restless nights, became a furnace of screams and a fire that trapped dozens inside. Hong Kong's celebrations turned into crushing silence when a crowd pressed too tightly, leaving behind broken bodies and unanswered cries. Korea's underground clubs echoed with music that turned into smoke. Each of these places was meant for joy, for gathering, for escape. Yet within moments, the same walls, streets, and doors became prisons. Panic has a way of reshaping reality. Steps that once carried laughter became paths of desperation, and long after, something darker lingered where human hope had collapsed. Witnesses speak not only of tragedy, but of echoes. The smell of smoke clings to empty stairwells. Shouts drift through alleys where no one walks. Music plays faintly in places that stand abandoned. The human mind remembers, but cities themselves seem to breathe, carrying pain in ways no one explains. What binds these disasters is not only death, but memory. Survivors carry scars, yet so do the places themselves. Urban tragedies are not buried beneath time. They rise in silence, in echoes, in shadows cast by flickering lights. And those who walk too close may still feel the weight of them. Tonight, you'll hear 3 disturbing true urban horror stories from East Asia. Stories of fire, panic, and chaos that refuse to stay buried. If you dare to step into these echoes, subscribe now and tell us from which city you watch. If you're brave enough to face what cities try to hide. Shinjuku was alive that night, its neon signs buzzing, streets echoing with voices and laughter. In the heart of Tokyo, the buildings seemed ordinary, filled with nightclubs and restaurants, stacked floor by floor. Yet the ordinary can hide a silent trap. Above, smoke began to curl unseen. Below, the crowd remained unaware. Inside, music drowned the whispers of danger. Couples laughed, glasses clinked, and lights glowed red across narrow rooms. But the hallways twisted like a maze, lined with locked doors and hidden exits. When fires sparked, it didn't roar, it crawled quietly, seeping into corners. Guests felt warmth before they saw the smoke. By the time alarms rang, panic already lived in the air. Some rushed to stairwells, only to find them blocked by heavy smoke. Others clawed at doors marked as exits, bolted shut against regulations long ignored. Screams collided with walls, trapped in the narrow passageways, as thick darkness devoured all light. Outside, passers-by stared upward, confused at first. Flames licked from high windows, their glows staining the night. Yet most inside were invisible, their cries muffled by concrete. Fire trucks came, sirens slicing through the city, but ladders fell short of higher floors. The crowd below watched, helpless, as shadows flickered above. Within minutes, smoke turned corridors into choking tunnels. Some crawled low, their palms scraping concrete floors, eyes burning with tears. Others pressed against windows, pounding glass, hoping for a breath of air. Firefighters shouted directions, but the building's twisted design betrayed them. The structure had become a coffin, sealing its victims. Witnesses recall one woman, her silhouette framed against flames, waving desperately before vanishing into the smoke. Another man tried breaking a window with a chair, his arms bleeding from glass, before collapsing. Survivors later described the heat as unbearable, a wall pressing into their lungs, suffocating even those who had not burned. When the fire was finally subdued, silence weighed heavier than smoke. Over 40 lives had been lost, their bodies found clustered by exits that never opened. Families gathered outside, clutching photographs, searching faces in vain. Reporters asked questions, But answers came slow, wrapped in excuses about poor safety codes and negligence. Authorities promised reforms, yet whispers began immediately. Some claimed they still heard cries echoing at night, drifting through Shinjuku's alleys. Others smelled burning long after the air cleared. Taxi drivers avoided the block, swearing they saw pale figures in windows of a building already gutted, its walls blackened by fire. Urban legends grew, shaped by grief and silence. Bar owners nearby said glasses toppled without cause, as if struck by unseen hands. Patrons complained of sudden heat brushing their necks, though no flames burned nearby. Survivors themselves confessed to hearing music faint, distorted as though the nightclub still played somewhere inside ruins. For Tokyo, the fire was not only tragedy, but a wound carved into memory. Shinjuku thrived again, its lights returning, yet scars remained invisible to tourists. Those who lived through the night could not forget the smell of burning hair, the crackling of wood, the way a joyful building turned predator. Investigations uncovered blocked stairways, broken alarms, and negligence buried beneath bribes. Regulations had been ignored, lives traded for profit. Families demanded justice, but courtrooms moved slowly. Some accepted official statements, others refused, insisting truth itself had been sealed behind those walls. The city moved forward, though shadows never truly left. Even now, locals walk past the site quickly, their eyes avoiding the upper floors. Guides rarely mention it, and maps hide its story. Yet silence itself becomes a reminder. What once held music, laughter, and life became an echo chamber for pain, and the city, no matter how Some nights, workers say they hear footsteps pacing the sealed floors. Others tell of fire alarms ringing without power connected. The building breathes differently, as if its walls still expand and contract with smoke. Fear spreads quietly, not of fire returning, but of what lingers when fire refuses to leave. The Shinjuku fire became more than a disaster. It became a haunting stitched into Tokyo's veins. In a city where millions walk shoulder to shoulder, silence presses hardest in places that once screamed. Shinjuku still lives, but beneath the neon lies memory, and memory, once burned, refuses to let go. And Kwai Fong was alive with celebration. It was New Year's Eve, and the narrow streets overflowed with laughter, music, and anticipation. Thousands gathered shoulder to shoulder, each step pressing tighter into the crowd. Neon lights flickered above, reflecting in glasses raised high. No one imagined that joy could collapse so suddenly into terror. At midnight's approach, the crowd swelled beyond control. Police barriers strained, and bodies pressed forward like waves. Smiles faded as breathing became difficult, laughter replaced by coughs and shouts. A fall here, a stumble, they're harmless alone, but devastating when multiplied. Panic began, not with fire or explosion, but with suffocation. Witnesses described the crowd shifting violently, people trapped in motion they couldn't resist. Some cried for help, their voices drowned in the roar of thousands. Others clutched strangers desperately, struggling to stay upright. When one section fell, bodies collapsed like dominoes. Those beneath felt ribs crack as weight crushed from above. Police shouted commands, but the sound vanished into chaos. Hands reached upward, grasping for anything solid. Some found railings, others nothing but air. A few climbed onto walls, screaming for rescue, while countless more sank into the mass. The festive music still played somewhere, cruelly unchanged, as despair grew below. When the crush ended, silence rang sharper than screams. 21 lives had been lost, countless others wounded. Families searching the streets found only shoes, scarves, and belongings scattered where joy had died. Officials blamed overcrowding, promising reforms, yet survivors whispered that no barrier could erase the memories of that night. The tragedy scarred Hong Kong's heart. For years, Authorities restricted access to land Kwai Fong during celebrations, but shadows lingered. Survivors spoke of guilt, of faces pressed into theirs, before disappearing forever. Some woke at night, gasping for air, convinced the crowd had returned, invisible, yet suffocating. Trauma lived louder than words. Businesses reopened quickly, music returning to the streets, but beneath neon signs, echoes remained. Patrons sometimes froze in sudden panic when crowds grew too tight, hearing cries no one else noticed. Bartenders whispered of drinks spilling without reason, as though unseen elbows still jostled them. The city tried to forget. Taxi drivers avoided the district during New Year's, muttering about restless spirits. They spoke of passengers vanishing mid-ride, leaving only condensation on windows. Some claimed they saw pale figures pressed against glass storefronts, their mouths open, silent. For them, the disaster never ended. It replayed endlessly, stitched into the city's veins. Lan Kwai Fong's tragedy was unique, not for flames or collapse, but for its simplicity. The danger was the crowd itself, a living force that turned joyous celebration into a grave. It reminded the city that even laughter, multiplied by thousands, could transform into something monstrous when pressed too tightly. Investigations spoke of negligence, of poor planning, but survivors said blame was meaningless. No answer could erase the weight they carried. One woman described hearing her friend's last breath against her ear. A man admitted he had stepped on bodies without realizing. Each confession carved deeper scars than official reports. As years passed, stories blurred into urban legend. Newcomers heard whispers of ghosts wandering the alleys at midnight, still searching for escape. Some claimed the district's laughter always carried an undertone of sorrow, like voices layered upon voices. Tourists saw celebration. Locals felt unease, as though the past still pushed among them. New Year's Eve returned annually, yet tension always hung in the air. Police patrols doubled, barriers reinforced, but unease spread anyway. Survivors often stayed home, unable to face the press of strangers again. Their absence was another scar, invisible yet undeniable, shaping the way Hong Kong remembered its own joy. Even today, people pause when streets grow too crowded, their instincts carrying the memory. Some say you can feel a chill sweep land Kwai Fong near midnight, colder than city air. Others swear the echoes of footsteps rush past, though no one moves. The disaster lingers, unseen yet unforgettable. Lan Kwai Fong still thrives, alive with celebration and tourists chasing nightlife. Yet, beneath the surface lies a shadowed memory of crushed bodies, silenced laughter, and vanished breaths. Cities often bury their tragedies beneath neon, but memory has a way of breaking through. And in Hong Kong, the streets still whisper. Incheon's underground nightlife thrived in the late 1990s. Beneath the streets, a popular club pulsed with music, crowded with young people celebrating graduation. The air was thick with cigarette smoke, neon lights flickered, and laughter echoed across the dance floor. No one imagined how quickly music could stop, replaced by screams of terror. The fire began quietly, a spark near faulty wiring hidden behind the walls. At first, dancers mistook the faint smoke for special effects. The DJ kept spinning records, unaware of danger building. Within minutes, flames burst from ceiling panels, raining sparks over the crowd. Darkness filled with orange light, and chaos began. The club had one main exit, a narrow stairwell that twisted upward. As smoke thickened, panic drove hundreds toward it. Bodies pressed tightly, tripping, falling, clawing forward. Heat seared their lungs, vision blurred, and screams bounced endlessly off concrete. The exit became a funnel of desperation, unable to carry them all. Witnesses said the fire spread unnaturally fast, consuming fabric, wood, and plastic in seconds. Some rushed to side doors, only to find them chained shut. Others collapsed on the floor, overcome by smoke before flames reached them. The music stopped mid-song, a single note stretching into silence, broken only by coughing cries. Firefighters arrived quickly, sirens wailing, but the building itself betrayed rescue. Thick smoke poured from stairwells, heat pushing them back. Water cannons blasted flames, yet inside the trapped had minutes at most. Outside, families gathered, desperate for news. The crowd's cheers of celebration had transformed into sobs and unanswered prayers. By dawn, the fire was out, leaving charred ruins and silence heavier than smoke. 53 lives were lost, many found clustered near the stairwell. Their belongings, phones, jackets, photographs were scattered across the floor, haunting reminders of youth cut short. Survivors wept, some in hospital beds, others on sidewalks, unable to comprehend survival. Authorities blamed faulty wiring and illegal renovations. Investigations revealed negligence, safety codes ignored, and exits deliberately locked. Outrage spread, yet justice moved slowly. For families, no sentence could match the weight of loss. What burned deepest wasn't only the fire, but the realization that joy had been sold as danger. Incheon never forgot. The site was rebuilt, businesses returning, but whispers filled the underground halls. Workers claimed the temperature dropped suddenly at night. Patrons swore they heard faint music, distorted and distant, even when speakers were silent. For them, the fire still burned, its embers hidden in the city's memory. Survivors carried invisible scars. One man described closing his eyes at night and hearing the same final song playing faintly. A woman confessed she avoided all crowds, terrified of being trapped again. Their lives continued outwardly, yet inwardly remained tied forever to that night, replaying like an unfinished performance. Legends emerged. Taxi drivers reported picking up passengers near the old club, only to find their back seats empty upon arrival. Locals spoke of shadows pacing stairwells that no longer existed. Some claimed mirrors fogged inexplicably in nearby shops, shapes appearing within the mist as though the smoke had returned. Students visiting memorials often described feeling watched, as if dozens of unseen eyes followed them. Teachers warned that respect was essential, for those who mocked the tragedy sometimes fainted suddenly. Fear spread not from the fire itself, but from the certainty that its victims remained present, waiting to be acknowledged. The city attempted to heal, holding vigils, building plaques, and naming reforms after the lost. Yet even as laws changed, grief lingered. Families kept photos of smiling faces frozen in youth, while survivors repeated stories to keep memory alive. Incheon rebuilt, but memory rebuilt itself stronger, refusing to be erased. To outsiders, the fire was history, another line in newspapers. But to Incheon, it was a wound stitched into daily life. Clubs grew safer, but fear never fully left. Even celebrations carried shadows, a quiet reminder that joy and tragedy can live side by side, waiting for one careless spark. Today, the underground streets hum again with music and neon, but those who listen closely hear something else. Between beats, faint echoes of laughter, coughs, and cries slip through. Incheon thrives, but beneath its pulse lingers memory. Some places never truly recover, and some nights never truly end. This was one. Tragedies in Shinjuku, Kwai, Fong, and Incheon revealed the fragility of urban joy. Celebrations, laughter, and neon lights were swallowed by smoke, panic, and silence. These were not distant legends, but real moments where safety failed and chaos reigned. Cities rebuilt, yet memory refused to fade. Some streets never forgot. Urban legends rose from ashes and echoes. Witnesses spoke of voices drifting through alleys, footsteps on sealed floors, and faces pressed against glass where no one stood. Grief became haunting, weaving itself into the architecture. These places remind us that death lingers not in ruins alone, but in the air itself. You've heard 3 disturbing true urban horror stories from East Asia. Stories where tragedy and haunting remain inseparable. If shadows still follow you after tonight, remember, they once belonged to lives cut short. Subscribe to Echoes of the East for more, and tell us from which city you watch, if you dare.